Hi, good morning, everyone. Thank you for being here. This is Jahnavi. I head Numetric. I'm a CEO and co-founder. Numetric is a cybersecurity consultancy and advisory. We help organizations in their starting their security journey and taking them through the entire journey. We typically work with startups and mid-sized organizations. Today's webinar is covering fintechs. We will tell you what are the security best practices to be followed by fintech organizations. And to give us details about this is our security expert. I'd like to welcome Shailendra Singh. He has been in the field of information security for the last 10 years, and he has handled various types of certifications, has helped organizations in planning their security journey and also implementing it. So he's helped with certifications like ISO 27001, PCI DSS, SOC 2, and privacy law compliances. Shailendra, thank you for being here. Very warm welcome to you today.
Thank you for having me, Jahnavi.
Yes, shall we start, Shailendra? So I wanted to start with asking you, what are the bare minimum security features that any fintech product should have?
Okay, so when it comes to bare minimum security features, instead of thinking from the point of view that these are the XYZ things that we should be doing, a better approach for any fintech organization would be to take up one of the information security standards that have been very well defined and defined over a long period of time, which also help in preparing a checklist of compliances and security features that should be incorporated into the product. So depending on which specific domain the fintech is serving, it could either choose between ISO 27001 or PCI DSS. PCI DSS obviously applies only in situation where there is card information involved. The card information could be in the form of a credit card or a debit card or maybe payment wallets. If none of these exist, then in that case, ISO 27001 is a good standard to begin with. And these standards, they are not necessarily prescriptive in nature. They are descriptive in nature, meaning they describe that, what is the expected outcome that you need to achieve as far as your security is concerned. Given the outcome, you will need to obtain maybe a little bit of specific InfoSec specific help from people, qualified people who are able to tell you that to achieve a certain outcome that is specified in the standard, you should be implementing ABC things. So if you follow these standards, you will automatically get to know that what are the features that are required. Now, that was explaining things at a high level in a more generalistic way. If we get more specific, the absolute minimum that I would suggest to list down a few would be: one, you should ideally attempt to have multi-factor authentication, preferably if, let's say, you are a cloud-based SaaS product, then it should be configurable for each client that you have. You should definitely be employing encryption technologies, both for data at rest and for data in motion. And to give you an example of each one of them, data at rest could be encrypted where the volume on which the data is stored is not accessible unless and until you use a decryption key. Now, VPC environments such as AWS or GCP, they by default have these features enabled in them. You just need to activate them for your VPC environment. When it comes to data in motion, we are talking of SSL encryption, so nothing should be on HTTP. And currently, the TLS version 1.3 is the one that is being proposed should become the default standard, right? So these are the few things that come to my mind. Other than that, when we talk of features, it is more so of an implementation of the access control in your application that becomes more important. But it is not a feature per se. It needs to be a module in your product which is implemented well. So these are the things that you should focus on.
Okay, great. And what would be the mandatory government compliances that fintechs would follow? And also, could you probably talk about, global fintechs as well here?
Yes. So, see, all governments all over the world, they are more concerned about security being at a higher standard in fintech organizations as compared to other cloud-based SaaS providers, or in general any organization, because there is a direct impact of any kind of a security breach, direct financial impact rather, which is much more serious in nature as compared to a security breach in a non-fintech organization. And besides that, fintech organizations do tend to be a more prominent target for cyber attacks, because naturally cyber attacks are carried out for two primary reasons. One is for either financial reasons, or otherwise for extracting data. Now, when it comes to fintech organization, that is a more lucrative, that is a more attractive target for cyber criminals, because the direct money involvement, it kind of makes it that much more better for them. Because of this reason, almost all governments are much more particular, much more strict about compliance as far as infosec is concerned for fintech organizations. And most governments have adopted some standard to begin with. Almost all of them tend to specify that you should definitely have ISO 27001 certification, because it is a very good standard to comply with. It's a good start for your security program. Clearly, any fintech that is based in the concept of dealing or handling card data, they naturally are required to be compliant with PCI DSS. It's a mandate, but this is something that is not government mandate, because PCI Council is not a government body, right? Other than that, in addition to all of these, a lot of governments come up with their own mandates, which reflect pretty much the same things that are specified in ISO 27001 and PCI DSS, and these are typically based on information security standards, from organizations such as NIST or NCSC, or the respective organization, nation CERT team, which is CERT team, Computer Emergency Response Team. So it is a combination of all of these. At a high level, all of them tend to reflect the same two, which is ISO 27001 and PCI DSS.
Okay. Could you sort of highlight something region-wise? Let's say, America is what generally governments demand, and EU, maybe UK, and then Southeast Asia, Australia. So, could we sort of just cover these regions and sort of say what the governments mandatorily ask in terms of compliance?
So, see, when it comes to government compliance, as far as the US region is concerned, there are in fact quite a lot of them. Depends on the specific kind of data that you are storing. But since we are limiting to fintech, the bare minimum expectation that they have is usually ISO 27001 and SOC. SOC is something that is specifically US focused, but there is a heavy reliance on the security controls that are defined by NIST for US organizations, versus similar kind of an expectation exists for, let's say, the UK region. But the difference is, instead of NIC, they go ahead and prefer to have it based on what NCSC defines, that is the UK specific security organization, which defines these standards. Again, ISO 27001 kind of remains a standard. PCI DSS does not matter which region you belong to. If you are handling card data in some manner, then automatically it is applicable to you. So the difference between US and UK mainly is on the front of SOC, right? Now, when we talk of, let's say, Indian region, then in that case, there is a mix of expectation in terms of SOC versus the other general standards like NIST and NCSC. I've not seen that much to be the case in the Indian region. Similar to Indian region, the Southeast Asia also, the expectation is in terms of ISO 27001 and PCI DSS.
Okay, so we could say that most of them is basically ISO 27001 and PCI DSS.
Yes.
And depending on whether it's UK or the EU, the regulatory compliance organization may also prescribe something additional, but it also overlays with ISO.
Yes, even if it is something that is prescribed by the government, it is likely to reflect fairly the same controls that are expected by ISO 27001 and PCI DSS.
Okay. Okay, great. Now, obviously, all fintech companies or most fintech organizations are expected to store or process credit card information or data, right? So,
Yes.
how to safely store payment data?
See, before we get to the point of actually storing data, one thing that I would like to point out here is EU GDPR, which is anyways expected to be applicable globally, but the core of the compulsion that is being implemented on or enforced on is in the UK, sorry, EU region. One of the good things that EU GDPR has triggered, and this is something that is being reflected in the data privacy laws of all nations, whether they are in draft stage or they have actually come out, is the concept of data minimization. See, just because you are a fintech organization, that does not necessarily mean that you should be collecting all of the data that you can potentially and possibly obtain from your customers and clients, right? If you minimize the amount of data that you're collecting on them, minimize the amount of data that you're generating, and I'm talking of metadata, the data that gets generated on top of data that you're already collecting, you automatically reduce the risk. And information security is always about risk reduction, right? Because there is no way that you can achieve 100% security. That is an impossible goal. It is just not going to be achieved. The only way you handle is to reduce the amount of risk that is inherent in your system. And the first step that you implement is to minimize the amount of data itself that you're collecting. On the other side, you also should be proactive about deleting data that is redundant anymore, that is not required, because the longer you carry the data, the longer the possibility that you will, when a compromise happens, that data gets leaked out, right? Now, keeping both of these things in mind, if you reduce this risk, automatically your vulnerabilities have gone down, right? But those are on your process side. When it comes to the technical side, the increasing trend that I'm seeing now is in ransomware attacks. Ransomware attacks have increased massively, and specifically, they are focusing on fintech organizations from the point of view that once everything is encrypted, then an organization does not really have a choice but to pay up the ransom. And unfortunately, a lot of times even paying up the ransom does not really work well. It is not a good thing, because ultimately you are kind of signifying to the attackers that I do not maintain my security processes well, because of which your ransomware attack succeeded. And if I am attacked and you succeed, then I'm likely to pay you up, so which means that I become a future target as well, right? The only good way of handling this, or rather preventing this kind of a situation from becoming worse, is from ensuring that you have a very well defined backup policy which you have implemented well, so that in case a ransomware attack happens, you wipe everything clean and you restore everything from that backup, right? The third part related to common vulnerabilities are the OS top 10. If you remediate the OS top 10 vulnerabilities in your application, you are fairly highly secure. The reason being that we always keep on reading these news that some new way of an APT attack was launched and it succeeded, or there is this big hacker group that is targeting organizations. Actually, that is not the real threat. The real threat is from people who are not very well experienced in the way of how to exploit vulnerabilities, but they know something. And because organizations are not proactive enough in ensuring that their security is compliant with a specific standard, or they are not doing well enough, these simpler attacks, they tend to succeed, right? And these simpler attacks are actually based on the OS top 10 issues that have not been remediated in your software. So it is more so going back to the basics. Take care of the basics, you will be 99% safe, right? And as I said, the whole concept of security it should be based on risk reduction. You reduce your risk. The last 1% or half a percent or even a 0.1%, the probability of that situation actually coming true for you is significantly low.
Okay. So reduce risks and basically you're reducing the gamut of exposure. And so therefore, by sticking to the basics, even by sticking to the basics, you're protected 98% of the time,
Okay.
right? Okay, great. Now, what are the most common vulnerabilities which get exposed?
When you say get exposed, I assume you mean that which are the common vulnerabilities that are inherent in systems, right? So again, I will circle back to the same thing that I mentioned earlier, which is the uh, OS top 10. OS stands for Open Web Application Security Project, and most of the applications today are web based. So that is why this is quite a relevant framework that is a collaboration of security experts, and in that there are 10 specific ones that are given the top position. So for example, SQL injection or cross-site scripting, these are the most common vulnerabilities that exist in systems. Other than that, the one I have seen most frequently coming up in the VA scans that we conduct is where unnecessary exposure of information, internal information, is happening, which is used by attackers to exploit the system. Because the more you know about the system, the more you are able to figure out that what exactly are the weaknesses that could exist in that particular system.
Okay. Okay, I think is it possible? I mean, let's not sort of name any organization, but are there any where categories of startups or young organizations who have faced who are suffering or who have suffered because of poor cybersecurity practices?
This is a contentious question because, in my knowledge and how much I am aware of, quite a lot of organizations actually are a victim of security breaches, and a lot of them do not even get into the public domain, like the news of them, because they are relatively smaller in size. But these security incidents do have a massive impact on the future of the organization. Because see, um, any regulation, for example, let's take GDPR. It requires that any kind of a security breach that you have been victim of needs to be notified to the affected uh, clients and customers, and this needs to be done within a 72-hour period from the time you become aware of that breach, right? But I have seen this, and it is unfortunate that there is this fear that if we go ahead and make a disclosure of this, it will hamper business. Yes, definitely there will be an impact on business, because it may end up expose an underlying problem, which is that the organization was not serious about security, right? It could also mean that maybe the organization was doing everything. It did have the intent of having security processes implemented, and it was on well in its journey of moving forward and reducing the risk over a period of time. And in that meantime, unfortunately, the attackers were far more capable than whatever security systems that they had built, and that is why they were able to overcome whatever security system technologies were implemented. It is possible that that could have happened as well. In either case, my opinion is that you start off on your journey, and hopefully you're not part of such kind of breaches. Now, having said that, the intention of hiding any kind of a breach actually kind of backfires, because the more it is known in general that whether an organization has been a victim or not, the more will be the impetus in general for all of the other organizations in the same space to worry that security is something important, right? I really do not want to comment more specifics on this, as whether what kind of issues fintechs are facing. All I can say in short is this: the situation is quite serious.
Okay, so situation is serious, but isn't it better that if the precautions have been taken and there is a breach or they are suffering, isn't it why is it a taboo, or is it a taboo to come out and open and declare it? Because I believe that any organization or a customer dealing with such fintechs or startups would be understanding of the situation, that while everything was taken care of, and yet they were breached. So it's not really their fault, and you have to work with them to get out of the situation. So why is it so much of a taboo, or why is it thought of a risk, it's as a risk to be sort of coming out and announcing that there has been a breach?
Right. So, see, there are two types of organizations. One type of organizations who have done a lot on the security front, and yet they were a victim of an attack, right? And another one where, for whatever reason, maybe because of business reason, because of lack of focus, because of maybe carelessness as well, or maybe because there is not enough uh, cash flow to ensure that security is implemented to the extent that is necessary. Both of these cases, what I would suggest is that in the first case where you are taking care of action, it is better to go ahead and disclose, because then you can always back up your statement of the breach having happened with the fact that you have had intent, you have done some things, but it has
Right.
not, unfortunately, it has not helped you, right? I do not really want to make a comment on where the organization as a whole is careless about it or not serious about security, because it is just a matter of time where an incident will happen. And see, if an organization is not concerned about security, it is also not likely to be concerned about one important thing, which is customer trust. And in my experience, I've always equated security with trust. See, the whole idea of security is not really to protect. Yes, that is the intent, like that is the outcome you're expecting, but that is an outcome on an objective level. When we talk subjective, we are actually improving the protection that we have for customer data is all about gaining trust. Whether it could be, if it is a B2C client, it is about gaining customer trust. If it is a B2B client or organization, then it is all about client trust, right? And so this is on a subjective level. Now, in recent times, in fact, it has becoming a mandate by organization for organizations and imposed by the respective national governments that you need to ensure that not only yourself but your vendors, who are your suppliers of, let's say, cloud-based SaaS products, they need to be secure as well, because you will be handing over data that has been entrusted to you by your clients and customers, and you are handing it over to some other organization. And if you have not uh, ensured that they are secure enough, then in that case you are not upholding the trust of your clients and customers, right? So it all boils down to trust, whether you yourself are the one provider of the system or you're obtaining it from another smaller startup that is in the fintech space and is providing a SaaS software where a whole lot of your data will get transferred to them, and if you have not ensured that they are sufficiently secure, you are going to be held liable. And in any case, see, when a breach does happen, it is not that vendor that will be held liable for it. You will be the one held liable for it, right? So again, you are the one who's breaking the trust of your client and customers. Net result for everyone, whether it is you as a large organization or whether you are a fintech SaaS provider who's relatively small and is kind of in the startup phase, at the end of it, it is all about trust. If you are a B2B fintech SaaS provider, it becomes even more the reason that if you do not uphold your client's trust, you will lose clients left, right, center, right?
Okay.
So that is
Okay.
how things are.
Okay. Okay. That's good to know. Good. Analysis in depth. And what about cryptocurrency? How to be secure with while dealing with cryptocurrency? Let's say.
Okay, cryptocurrency is still, I would say, is in a relatively nascent stage. See, it is not likely to enter mainstream um, financial system at this point in time, or even in the foreseeable future, because of the one simple underlying fact that it does not allow traceability. And what does not allow traceability cannot be governed. And what cannot be governed will not be part of the mainstream payment system, right? Um, Other than that, the common pattern that I am seeing is that cryptocurrency is still and likely to continue being used for anything that you do not want traceability for. Now, when we talk of normal organizations, there is a need for traceability, because there is regulations and compliance that are necessary, right, and which require traceability. So I am not sure as to what exactly to be commenting on cryptocurrency when it comes to security. Now, one thing I do want to point out, which is kind of funny when I found out about it, that what happened in case of Bitcoin was that the way the system works is that they operate through the concept of nodes, right? And these nodes are the gateways, kind of where you are connecting. That is, these nodes are the reason why traceability is kind of impossibly difficult to identify someone, and that is what is the key, why this whole system works, right? What happened is that there was this particular group, I will not name them, but what they were doing is that they created almost 25% of the nodes that were transacting Bitcoin related transactions, right? And what they were doing is that they were identifying that which of these conversations, these digital transactions that are happening, are pertaining to Bitcoins themselves. The idea being that they were able to actually decrypt and read the transaction that is happening, and in the process be capable of actually bypassing and modifying the transaction in such a manner that the Bitcoin does not land up to its destination, but rather it goes to their own wallet. And once it is redirected and ends up in someone else's wallet, it is impossible to get it back, right? The funny part about all of this is that the very infrastructure that actually enables cryptocurrency was used against the cryptocurrency itself, right? And this was actually a very, very strange thing for me to find out, because it kind of started appearing to me that it became its own undoing. I'm not saying that Bitcoin is gone. It is very doing well and going to continue, but this was a strange thing that I came across.
Right. Okay. Um, wow. Okay. There's a lot of information you shared, and it was very interesting to know all of this, Shailendra. And I hope all our viewers here today have also enjoyed. I'll just check some of the chats. Okay, fine. We do not have any chats. Okay. Fine. So we do not have any questions. So if any of our users want to reach out to us, you can see the ticker below. Please reach out to us, and you can write to us at secure@numetric.com, or you can also visit us on our website www.numetric.com, and we'd be happy to sort of give you more information on either fintech security or general product security itself. So thank you so much, Shailendra. Thank you so much for joining us today. And viewers, whoever's joined, we'll be coming back with more webinars. So stay in touch. We'll catch up again soon. Thank you, Shailendra. Thank you for being here.
All right, thank you, Jahnavi. Bye.
Bye. Good day.